Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. Today, you are going to be hearing the incredible testimony of a lovely woman named Melissa. And y'all, when I say her story is truly inspiring, that is no joke. But on top of that, it is just phenomenal the things that she has overcame in her life. I really hope you guys enjoy hearing her story as much as I did, and that it can inspire you in some way too. If you have any questions, feel free to ask those in the comment section. But most importantly, y'all, show Melissa all the love and support.
I was born in West Virginia. My parents brought us to North Carolina. My whole family, a couple of them came temporarily, but they all ended up back in West Virginia, and we stayed here. So it was just the four of us. Lots of love, not a lot of money, not a lot of material things. Had everything we needed, which, is of course most important. When it comes to drugs and alcohol, I can remember on one hand how many times I remember my dad ever got drunk, and every time him and my mom would get in an argument. She did not drink. There was no, not even pot smoking. There was, no kind of drugs. I remember my aunts and my uncles, when we would go visit, they would all smoke, and my cousins as little kids, they would come and cry, we'd pat them on their back because our parents were the only ones that, didn't do it. So kids, no matter how small they are, when you think that you're hiding things from them, I promise they know. I don't know, ever since I was younger, I always wanted to be older. I always wanted to party. I don't know what it was. And it wasn't necessarily about drugs, because I was against drugs. I was all for drinking and, like I said, and, smoking. But as a teenager, I was very rebellious. And I don't know why. I ran away when I was 14. I did things, I don't know. It was really odd. And I still don't know everything, and probably never will. I left school. I quit school. I got my GED right after, but I quit school when I was 16. Not because I was pregnant either. I quit school because I did not want to go to school, and I don't know. I just had that mentality. It was just not good. I was a very selfish, self-centered, wild teenager. I often wonder, and that's a lot of things I still wonder about, is, where did all that come from? So life went on with my parents. I was their wild child, and they were just, my sister was taking dance, and I was sneaking out the window, and I was young. And then I, left school, and I went and moved out for a while. And back then, even at 16, they couldn't make me come home. So I got to live on my own with a friend of mine for 6 months straight. And at this point, still no, addiction going on. Yeah. I would smoke and drink, and that was it. And anything else was, not even of question. It would not happen. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't touch it, But I remember going 6 months where I didn't see daylight. We left when it was dark at night. We got home when it was dark in the morning, and slept all day, and I remember that's when I decided to move back home. It just was too much. 6 months, it was fun, but, I was ready for something else, something more. I go back home, I move in, and my mom is thrilled, and my parents are just ecstatic because, me not realizing how they felt back then, but their 16-year-old left home. I mean, I don't know what I would do, how did they feel? We see our parents, we don't even see them as like humans sometimes. We see them as something else.
When you have your own kids and you look back at things, it's like, wow, I really put my parents through a lot. And you don't think about that until you have your own children, you really don't.
Yeah. And just, seeing my dad cry and, things like that. I mean, it's really emotional, and it's just, I really did put them through a lot, and I did not see it. I did not see, what I was doing. I moved back home, and they're excited, and I was talking about what I'm going to do and what we're going to do. And they're just, we're planning for the future. And I go to the grocery store with my mom, and I see a thing of what they were was Penrose hot sausages, something that we never bought. I never ate. My mouth started watering. Well, come to find out, I was pregnant, and that was just one first of many cravings. And, it made me feel so bad, because I have a feeling that they thought that, that's why I came home. But I really had no idea. I freaked out. I did not, at that point especially, but in my head, I thought I never wanted children. And I did not want to have a baby. I wanted to get an abortion. That's what I told my mom. I was still really young, obviously, and she would have had to sign for it. And I told her that, and she was like, no, you can't do that. And, the only person she'd ever been with her whole life is my father. And they did not meet till she was 21. So she, it's pretty high standard. She did not, put it on a pedestal or nothing. She just she didn't even think about it like that. But, I knew, like, I mean, it's something that, she did share with me and my sister before. My dad even knew, and, he actually treasured it, and, they stayed together forever, and whatever, their love story so sweet. She was telling me no, and that, we could do it. And, I wasn't hearing her, of course. I was like, no, I'm going to do it. So what she did was she had all this planned. I didn't know it at the time. She's like, when we go, we're going to go to this appointment. If their test says, it's positive, then we will do it. Well, she already knew that appointment would be the amount of time where I would be able to hear the baby's heartbeat. And she was hoping, and she told me on the way there, although I still didn't know any of this. I did not know I was going to hear baby's heartbeat. I was ignorant to all this. I had never stepped foot in a social services building. Right. So, like, I go thinking, okay, I'm going to go, and it's going to be positive, and she's going to be okay, because I'm still going to want this. And we went, and she knew that they were going to do the heartbeat, and they did it, and I heard it, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, to myself, I'm thinking a million things in my head. And she looked at me, and we were done, we were leaving. She's like, I'll let you get that abortion done now if you still want to. And I looked at her and I said, how can I do that? And she started crying. She's like, that's what I was betting on. It was something. It was a moment. We went through that pregnancy together, and it was beautiful. And I had a beautiful baby, and she is now almost 25.
That's amazing. So, with your daughter that you was thinking about having the abortion, was the father in the picture, or did you have to raise her by yourself? Did he know about it?
I was 16 and he was 21. He was a big baby and ran away and put his tail between his legs. His dad was a preacher. And I mean, just craziness. He was insane. Yeah. I couldn't believe how he acted. He was a mess anyway. So, I mean, we really dodged a bullet with that one. Met my first husband. I was still really young, but I was doing everything early. Okay. I was doing everything early. So why not get married early? So I met him, and about 6 months later, he was really good with my daughter. He was older as well. He was like 7 years older than me. We met Valentine's Day before I turned 18. So Haley was about 6 months old. And I remember when I really liked him is when we went somewhere and he knew to turn the airbag off. He was a guy with no kids, and he knew to turn the airbag off with him as he had a truck. And, he was just really good with her. You could tell he was natural. And, I really liked I knew of his family. I went to school with his brother, and he was good with her. And, I mean, I was ready to, get out of my parents' house and, give them their space and just, start my own thing. I automatically, my parents were fully prepared to raise Haley. They didn't know what to expect when I had her, but they never had to. Like, I mean, it all just came. Teen pregnancy does not, it's not a generational curse or anything in my family. So I think the good Lord knew, as he often does. I think he knew, that I was going to need my kids. Not that they were going to need me. I really think he knew that I was going to need them, because you'll see. We got married, and, we ended up we started off in this little trailer, and then we ended up with a house way in the country. And I was happy, things were good until they weren't. I remember it started with one weekend. We were supposed to all go out and do something. We were going to drink, and the girls were going to go out and the guys were going to go out. And, and the girls were talking about rolling, I was debating on, that was a big deal. I'd never done anything like that, and it didn't work out. But we walk in on the guys, and he was doing cocaine. And I freak out. I start crying. You would have thought somebody got murdered. You would have thought, I mean, I'm telling you, I freaked out. Like, I thought the whole world was ending in that moment. And, it was to me in that time, I mean, I was just, I did not even know half of it. We fought and argued, and, it just seemed like after that one time that, I didn't leave him for it. It was just, and he did it again and again. And come to find out, years later, and we fight about it. But, he had actually had issues with it before, but I just didn't know any of it. I got to a point where it was like, if you can't beat them, join them. And I tried it. And it was just 6 months spurt, and, blew a bunch of money, but I just got sick of it. And, I stopped doing it. It was not good. It was disgusting. I got really skinny. That was pretty much it. It was nothing that I wanted to continue. And that is until a car accident. At this point, I'd already had my youngest daughter. It was probably around 2000 when I had her. And I'd say I got in the car accident around 2002. The x-ray said I had my L1 and L2 were both degenerating. And, you know, I was really young, mind you. I don't even think I'm 21 yet, but I'm in a lot of pain. And I leave the doctor's office. Okay. I leave the doctor's office with a prescription of Vicodin and methadone. Methadone was for the long term. The Vicodin was for short term. Methadone was for the long term pain. Okay.
Wow.
This was back when they were no restrictions. I don't know if you remember when it was like that. I don't know. I don't know who all remembers.
When I first started using, there was no restrictions, and they would fill them like it was candy. I would go through 30, and within a couple, like a week, 2 weeks, and they'd fill them again, no problems. Don't ask questions.
Yeah, I ended up with a nasty opioid addiction, a pill addiction that got bad. I mean, it was, you know, it took over, you know. Then you do it to function. You know, I have these kids I gotta take care of. I can't be sick. Then it's mind consuming. That's where, you know, I get people, you know, who don't agree with the whole methadone thing. I understand their logic at some point, but if you've ever been in that position, you know, being able to go and, you know, get something without having to, you know, spend your whole day chasing it, and you can go lead a halfway normal life. Like, they really are saving lives, and it really is starting recovery in the mind. Methadone was really saving lives. So I can't say anything bad about it. Sometimes I catch myself starting to, but, you know, I remember, you know, just how important it was in my really, really early recovery. I ended up getting my opioid addiction under control thanks to it. You know, I didn't spend but so many years, you know, chasing it, you know, doing the things we all, you know, we all regret, you know, when we're on something, you know, hanging around those people, and, you know, just the whole thing that comes with a dependency. And I was able to live some kind of normalcy in between then and what turned into a very scary and dreadful benzodiazepine addiction. When it comes to the whole benzo thing, now that, like, I'll get started with that. We separated after 5 years because of his issues and the fact that we were doing it together. We separated. After we separated is when I got in an accident, went to the doctor. I was working for my dad, and then, you know, it lasted, and, you know, the things came with it that always come with it. And then I got it under control thanks to, you know, I've heard about the methadone program, and I went and got, you know, back, you know, what I could of my life, you know, at that point. And I was really happy. Like, it worked great for a while. Then I remember my dad got sick in 2006, and he got cancer, and he died. And I was right there when he took his last breath. And, you know, I was 24, maybe 23, 24. It was absolutely devastating to my soul and to my family, like anybody losing their parents. I'm not going to say that I ever started using benzos because of him. I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't remember ever picking up the first one or going to the doctor, getting them and saying, this is because my dad died, because it was a little while after. But, you know, at some point I started taking them, and it grabbed a hold of me, and it kept on to me for years. It was to the point where, and it's not going to sound realistic to you and to most people. And that's okay, because it doesn't even me. If I didn't even know it was the truth, you know, I wouldn't, you know, think it makes sense either. What was happening is when I was trying to stop taking them, or if I couldn't find them, or if I ran out, I would go, I had this thing called benzodiazepine withdrawal syndrome. And I would have grandma seizures, severe grandma seizures. One time I broke my whole leg, my fibula, my tibula, because, you know, when you go in a seizure, your whole body moves. I was standing up. You know, terrible things would happen to me every time I didn't take them. And, you know, so, you know, yes, I was taking them a lot. You know, I mean, they do what they're supposed to do. I mean, when you don't want to feel nothing, you won't feel anything, you know. I've never spent a day in jail, and the only time I ever did anything wrong legally was when I took those things. I would take them, and if I walked in the store, it was like everything was for me. I had my name on it. And what was recreational and here and there, as life, you know, happens, you know, things happen when you're not living right. You don't realize that, you know, even though these things are bad, and they would be bad no matter what, because you're using and you're in this frame of mind, they're 10 times worse. In 2015, I was doing really good, but then things took a turn for the worse. Like, I was doing good because we bought a house in 2014. Where my dad died, my mom lived with us. It was a really exciting time. So, and like I said, my opioid issue was still under control, and the benzo issue, you know, it was still there, but it wasn't. Life was doing good. I was doing pretty good. I was
Yeah.
being more of a functional addict. Right after we moved to the house, my mom got sick with cancer. We found out she had leukemia on her 55th birthday. That's the first time that I went into. Now I had the the opioid problem that I had under control, and then I had been struggling with a benzodiazepine problem. For several years now, I've been taking it recreationally, but I wasn't at the point where the seizures had started yet. In 2000, when my mom died, I just started taking. I was self-destructive. Like, I was doing things I had never done. It was really bad, and I would leave I left for the weekend. I would just do things that were totally out of character for me. Even as an addict, these were things were out of character. I was doing things that I was crossing my own boundaries. I really did not want to face what was in front of me at all costs. This is where you're kind of catch-22. This is where I didn't have my opioid addiction under control, but it was still under control. But if I wanted to take something else, I would. Like, I didn't take it seriously. Like, I was wilding out at that time. I was in so much pain, and at the time I didn't know that's why I was doing it, but looking at that part of my struggle compared to the rest of my struggle, it looks very different. I was in a really bad place. Like, I can't even express to anyone just how bad it really was.
That's kind of when I fell into my addiction. It wasn't nobody's fault but my own, but trying to cope was after my dad passed away from cancer. I just didn't want to feel anything, and I was willing to do whatever I had to do to not feel anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine losing my mom and my dad like that. So, girl,
it was something. I'm on a bunch of Xanax, and I'm getting them prescribed, but then they're definitely not enough. It just, your body gets used to them easily too. Like, you get used to it, and a tolerance builds up, and it's just a whole thing. And it's just years of terrible things happened during that time too. Like, when you were mixing, it's one thing to have an opioid addiction. It's another thing to take Xanax with opioids. That's when you're passing out with your kids in your hands, and you can't stand up, and I mean, that's just craziness. That's insanity. But luckily, it was only a few incidences where I was like that, to that extreme in public. But I'm sure they saw me. I know they did, especially the older girls, because I have an 11-year-old I had when I was 30. My current husband now, I met him a little bit before my dad died. My dad was sick when I met him, and I remember him coming over, and we were still just friends. When I left for my dad's funeral, I was gone for 2 weeks because he was buried out of state. My husband, and that's when he asked me to start dating him. He was without me for 2 weeks, and he wanted to be boyfriend and girlfriend, and we ended up moving in together. He was not on drugs. He was not an addict. None of that. And I was a freaking zombie Xanax head. He stayed with me, and he stayed with me through a lot of things. And, we moved, and then my mom died. And, in that time, I'm just grateful that, he's still there, because I know, in my heart of hearts, the kind of person I'm being. I'm not being, the wife that I want to be. I'm not being the mother that I want to be. Even on good days, me thinking back at it now, even on good days then, for me now, they were still unacceptable. Like, the me now is just so different than the me then. If it wasn't for my kids, they were what kept me from, doing all these things on a street corner, from it going from any extreme, because my will to be their mom, my will to not accept this as my life, I was always trying to figure out how I could stop this. I was always wanting to. I mean, it never left my mind. That's all I could think about, was not wanting to do this. I remember being at the methadone clinic, and at the beginning, when you have to go to those groups, people would come in and they were 10 years clean. And, that would seem so far-fetched to me. And I just remember I didn't want to do it anymore. Like, I knew something bad was going to happen. Like, there had to be an end in sight. Like, I couldn't go on. I was getting on my computer, because, like I said, the grandma seizures were every time. Every time I did not have it, every time I would have one. Like, we had a spoon for me in our house that was wrapped up with a sock and tape, so they could put it in my mouth, because every time it happened, I had so many cuts, sores on my bite, my tongue. My family got used to it, because that was one of my side effects for coming off of benzodiazepine. So I was at a catch-22. I was like, even if I wanted to quit, I couldn't. When I went to the doctor and told them that I want to quit, would you wean me off? When I was honest with them about the amount I took, because what they would give me would be enough to wean me off for a day or two. When I was honest with them about the amount I took, I mean, thinking about it now, I understand, but, they thought I was just seeking, that I was lying. Who does that, and it's still standing here? Like, really? I mean, it's unbelievable. And, I understand it now. So it was just really hard. And but I was just at the point where I didn't want to do it anymore. And I remember I was really depressed one day, and I was I wanted to talk to my mom. I was just so much stuff was weighing on my mind. When it comes to religion in my whole life, my parents always believed in God. I did not go to church. I did not pray before dinner. I would have probably told anybody and everybody I believed in God. And to me, I did, but it wasn't based on my own faith. It was based on the faith of my parents. I didn't know how to have my own faith, but I didn't have any kind of relationship with the Lord. I had no kind of religion. The only time I really even, mentioned God or like when something's happened, oh, please God, let's this work out. I was having a hard time, accepting the fact that I was not, there for my mom, at the end, like I should have been. Like I was not the daughter that I was meant to be. Like she deserved more. If you're lucky enough to experience a real, true, good mother's love, or parents' love in general, when you lose that, like that's the only time you ever be unconditionally loved. Like you'll never get that back. Like when it's gone, you'll never be loved like that again. Nobody, like not even your own kids. Your own kids, I don't even see you as a human. They see you as their mom. She's not here anymore. And I don't know what I was expecting to seek, from her friend, but I needed to talk to someone in that moment. And on that day, she listened to everything I had to say. And her response to me was, and everybody called me Missy because, if you were really, really close to our family. And she was like, Missy, you're going to have to give it to God. And, to me, who I am at that time in my mind frame and everything, I'm thinking to myself, you don't think I've done that before? You don't think I've, talked to God about my feelings and everything I'm going through before? To me, it was just like anytime anybody else said anything to you, like when you're growing up and the people come to your house and they would talk to you, you would think they're just doing this because, they're supposed to, or I don't know. For some reason, I don't know why I didn't take certain things serious. And I remember, with my dad as a kid debating, contradicting the Bible. And he's like, how do you believe the Bible? He's like, you just do. It's faith. And I'm like, but man lies. Like, this is the Bible. Man writes this book. Man lies. I was always trying to find a twist. So I go on about my business and I'm going on about my life and, feeling my guilt and all the regret. And at this point, I'm still not sober, but I'm feeling a lot of weight. Like, I'm not wowing out as much, I'm just, still, taking the benzos and, managing the opioids, if that's, what you want to call it at that point. Cause, it was managing it the weeks I wanted to manage it, whatever, I'm a mess. I had gone through, I say this is probably end of 2016, beginning of 2017. And, I go in my room and I start praying. Now, I had no expectations. This was not a prayer that I was trying to get anything out of it. It was me at home alone, and I had some feelings to release. And, so I don't remember everything because it wasn't planned. I remember, telling God that, I didn't want to do this anymore. That, I want to know him. I want to know what they know. I want to feel what they feel. That if he can help me, not have seizures and, if he can help me, like I would do whatever it took on my end to do better. I remember, saying things like that. I remember crying out to my mom, talking to her, while I was talking to God and apologizing for, just everything. I was, saying it literally just for, for not being there like I should have been, for not, being stronger, for, just not being the daughter that she deserved in that time in her life. And for a long time before that. And then it started things I had not even had forgotten about, things I had not thought about, things I'd forgotten about started coming to my head. I remember, from, pulling legs off a Green Day long leg as a 4-year-old to an abortion that I had, when I was, 24-year-old. So it was a prayer. It was a prayer. It was a confession. It was so much more than a prayer. And, and I can't explain. I don't even remember everything that happened. I said, but it was huge. But I still had no expectations. I did not know I was doing anything than talking out loud. Well, I wake up the next morning, and and the changes, because I can tell you what happened that day is I was saved. But I had no idea. I had no idea how to be saved. I did not know you could be saved by yourself in your bedroom. Although this was, instant, it was also gradual. So starting the very next day, I only knew a couple of people that, I would get, the benzos from. One of them, he died the next morning. And, he had had issues before, and he knew if he kept doing, if he didn't stop, this would happen. And, but the next morning he had died. And then that night, the other one, was he got caught and he got put in prison. And I'm thinking, and what I tell myself was, like, I was like, wow. I was like, well, this is going to help that a lot. You know, I wasn't religious like that. I wasn't sitting here thinking anything about that prayer at this point. I meant everything I said. You know, if I really could, you know, get out of this, I would do right. And if he really, you know, I really did want to know him, and I really was willing to give my life over to him in that way. I just, you know, I wanted to have a relationship with him. I wanted to experience it. But basically, throughout the days to come, I still regret all the things I regret. But I was able to forgive myself in a way that I'd never been able to. I was able to understand. I don't know how to explain it. It was crazy. I was also, from big things to small things, I was able to get myself physically off of benzos. I was able to, you know, go get, and even though I still had to get them off the street, you know, because I still had to do this without having a seizure. You know, I had to go through people that I didn't know. I mean, it was strange situations. I did go to one doctor, but I had to be able, it wasn't going to take long to get myself to a point where I wouldn't have seizures. I just had to do it right, and I had to have the willpower not to overtake. So I was able to split them up and do what I was supposed to do to wean myself off properly. That was the first thing. You know, I was able to get it to the point where if I did not have a benzo, I was not going to have a seizure. And then I was able to go a week without them, you know, and I was still, you know, getting my maintenance from opiates, but a week without a benzo when I was fighting to get them every day. Along with that, everything changed. Gosh, it's so much. I can't even tell you everything. From little things down to being able to quit smoking. I haven't smoked cigarettes, you know, since around that time. You know, when I decided to quit, I quit. I quit smoking cigarettes. I do vape with 0 nicotine. I decided to quit biting my nails, and I quit biting my nails. At this point, I'm also on subs, not methadone anymore. I was told before I got clean that I had something that, you know, you can't get rid of. I was ready to accept it, you know, go to the doctor, see what we're looking at. There's also, at this point, there was also a cure. What it was Hep C. And although I had never done, you know, IV drugs, I had gotten tattooed, went to a tattoo party before. So there's only like a couple ways you can get it. And I'm assuming that is the way that I got it because I couldn't have gotten any other ways. I don't know, but they told me I had it. Well, that was devastating to me. Like I said, I buried it in the back of my mind. And then, you know, when my life started changing that day after that prayer in my room, like everything just gradually started changing. When I was doing well and I went to the doctor, I was like, you know, I want to see if I'm qualified for the cure. You know, I heard that there is one now. And, you know, and they're like, I'm sure you will, you know, let's run some tests or whatever. And, you know, I was praying to the Lord that, you know, I would qualify for it, that I wasn't I just didn't know. Come to find out, my body kicked it on its own.
So crazy. So much of what you're saying I can relate to. And it's
really,
just, yes,
that's
girl.
crazy.
They had told me I had the antibodies and that it wasn't active. And then when I went back because I had to get it checked every 6 months, it was just gone. And they told me that happens sometimes. That of course they would check in regular doctors to make sure it doesn't come back or anything like that. But it hasn't, praise God. And they told me, they was like, when you change your lifestyle and you change the way you do things health wise, your body can it does something. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's not always, you know, depending on how far along it is, but there are those instances if you really do change your life around where some people their body just kind of, so that's amazing.
I was able to do something that I never thought I could do. I was in the depths of I just can't. So do you realize that most people, or a lot of people, I don't want to say most because I don't know that for sure, a lot of people that have the benzodiazepine withdrawal syndrome can never fully get off of benzos without brain damage. I now remember in the beginning, I mean, I could watch a series, TV show, in 2 weeks, watch it again, and like I'd never seen it before. My mind was not, I mean, it's slowly healed. I mean, just like a wound. I mean, it healed and it got better every day. And I'm beyond blessed to be where I am. And I had never had a more of a relationship with God before. And I'm telling y'all, and I'm not trying to preach religion because I've tried to talk to a few of my friends and I'm thinking, oh, if they hear it from me, they know me. They know I wouldn't, you know, if I, you know, didn't go through this, I wouldn't say, you know, but they don't see me any different than the next person that, you know, try to tell them you got to be there. But I'm just saying totally not a waste of your time to anybody who has been looking into that, because I am a true testimony. Like, I have gone through a lot. I have gone through a lot, and things that, I mean, everybody that I talk to that hasn't seen me in 10 or 12 years have told me, I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but I thought you would have been dead by now. Like, I
Wow.
was, yes. And, there were times where, there was a time where I overdosed. And
Yeah.
this was before my mom died and before I met my husband. So I had to have been around 2000 and the end of 2005. And all that I was able to get opioid wise, this was before I had the clinic or anything, was morphine, but they were extended release, and, it was like, I couldn't tell that I was taking them. And anyway, I go to bed and I wake up the next morning. I don't remember anything as I slept, but I wake up and I remember I can't move. I'm stuck to the bed. I can't move. My voice is like, I was like, hey, hey, I couldn't talk. I'm sitting there trying to get my muscles to move. And finally, the person beside me, it was a friend of mine, he woke up and he looks at me and he starts crying immediately. Okay. Like, I'm not even saying anything. He starts crying because I don't know what's going on. I just know something is wrong. Like, I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
like this. My eyes are just moving. I'm laying flat on the bed. I'm just like, whoa. I am. And he starts crying, and he comes over there and he's like hitting my face, saying sugar, sugar, stuff like that. He's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, what is going on? I had blood coming out of my mouth.
Oh my
It was on my
goodness.
lips, coming out of my mouth. And I remember he took me to the bathroom and was waking me up. My lips were blue. Like, I remember when I saw myself in the mirror. I don't know what happened, because like I said, I don't have a memory of, anything. I remember going to sleep and then waking up to this. But now, with the knowledge that I have of things, I overdosed. I could have died. My body was freezing cold. My lips were blue. I had blood. Like, did I wake up from the literal death? Was I dead? Like, I don't know. But
Oh my
that
goodness.
that is crazy. I don't know how far, how close I was to anything, but me making it through that, I mean, that is a miracle. It took me a long time to realize what a miracle was, because I just let it go out of my head and I'm messing up again the next day. I used to want to tell my story, because I remember when it first happened, because people say when you first get sober, like, you get this, everything's great. Like, you have this period of, like, where everything's just wonderful. Nothing bad can hurt you. Every day is like, and then people say the same thing about someone who, finds the Lord. I was having a honeymoon period from being sober and from finding the Lord all at the same time. But then, then reality hits. And, and although all these great things, God did touch my life, and he is there, and I have a great relationship with him, and he helped me know my worth. He helped me see, he helped me forgive myself. He helped me in so many ways see things that, I don't know, I'm forever changed. Like, my soul is forever different because of that. But also, bad things happen to me. I've been going through one of the hardest times of my life the past 3 years. And my prayers, have not been answered the way I wish they would have been.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, if I would have gone through this very thing before all this happened, I would have never made it through. I personally would rather live one more year with my soul and the peace and the harmony I have within myself now than another 10 before I found this. And even though the newness is wore off, and even though real life is set in, it is still 10 times better. A sober mind, but even more than that, a relationship with the Lord. Like, it really matters. It matters so much. And I just, if I can help anyone in any way, not just, get sober, but if you've been, like I said, if you're not religious, then I'm not here to judge whatsoever, because I have not always been. And I don't even know if some people maybe would say I'm not even still religious. But if you're someone who's ever thought about it, don't wait, because it's going to change your life if that's really what you're ready for. And when it comes to being sober, you can do it. I know that it feels like you cannot. I know it feels like spit in the wind. It is such a lonely feeling. You're being a slave to something. I try not to ever let myself forget. It could happen to anybody. But also anybody can get sober. And just don't ever think that, you're too far away, because you're not. Like, there is no too far away. Whenever, just keep trying, and don't let any slip, or, slips might be, the best way for you to get sober, with a couple slips in between. Everybody is different, and things are going to happen different for everybody, but just do not give up on yourself. Don't ever give up on yourself, and don't ever accept it as your life.